Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Talk Stocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're joined by Rob McLeod, the new president and CEO of Ascot Resources. Trades on the TSX Venture Exchange with the ticker AOT.H. How you doing today, Rob?
Good, man. Good to see you, Kier.
Hey, great to see you. By the way, you're my first guest for 2026, and I was looking back the last couple of years, and the first guest for 2024 was Sean Kuhn with Dolly, and my first guest last year was Gwen with West Red Lake. So, and I don't do this on purpose, but you're sort of the third Fiore company sort of in a row to kick off the new year with. So, hey, they've both performed pretty remarkably sort of since they've been on the channel to start the year. So let's see how Ascot does.
Sure, and a lot of the, let's call it, intellectual knowledge and experience from both of those two stories are certainly going to apply with the new Ascot and our plans for 2026. So, but I'm very humbled to be following in the footsteps of my two friends.
Excellent. Well, for those of my viewers who don't know what a rock star you are, just in the mining business, everybody in Vancouver and sort of in Canada that's invested into mining and exploration, anything to do with any assets in BC has probably come across your name before. For those of my viewers that aren't familiar, could you give us a little background on like who you are, who your family is, maybe a few things that you've worked on that were successful before?
Sure. Well, I'm lucky to be a third generation miner. My hometown is Stewart, British Columbia, which is right in the heart of the Golden Triangle. My grandfather immigrated to Canada from Scotland in 1925 to work as an underground miner. My dad and his brother Ian McLeod, his brother Don McLeod, were both underground miners that worked at the Premier Mine, which I'm going to talk about today, in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. I'm a geologist by training. My first job working in the mining business was actually at the Premier Mine when it operated in the early 1990s for a company called Westman Resources. My first geology job was at the Red Mountain deposit, which is also in the Ascot portfolio. Started working there for Lac Minerals in the 1990s. And one of my recent companies called IDM Mining was actually acquired by Ascot a little over 6 years ago. And so it's a lot of full circle coming back to these two deposits, tremendously motivated to see them successful. But additionally, I'm a partner within the Fiore group of companies. We've been specializing in a couple of things. Number one, acquiring and turning around troubled assets, West Red Lake gold mines, and the recently launched Selkirk copper mines, where we partnered with the Selkirk First Nation to buy the Minto mine out of bankruptcy. We launched that in November. And I'm just stepping down from my previous CEO role with Nations Royalty Corp, where we partnered with the Nisga'a First Nation to launch Canada's first majority Indigenous-owned company called Nations Royalty, of which there are royalties in that company that are from deposits within the Ascot portfolio. And then dating back, lots of other successes from Underworld Resources, Miramar Mining, lots and lots of northern experience. But the Red Mountain Project and the Premier Project, they're definitely my two passion projects in this life.
Sounds like runs deep in the family. Lots of experience there. Know these assets like the back of your hand. So that's great to hear. Congrats on the new role. I think it was just sort of announced last week, and congrats on that. Like you needed another one, but I'm sure this one is going to be the most fun one yet.
Well, it was honestly, it was the most challenging one because Ascot was quite distressed for a long time, for over a year. And literally when Fiore came in and negotiated our advisory role, it really was to save the company. The company was weeks away from bankruptcy, and nobody wanted to see that happen. So we managed to negotiate with the two secured creditors, Nabari and Sprott Streaming and Royalty, a 3-year break on the covenants of those agreements to allow us to execute on the plan. And then, very importantly, we cleaned the balance sheet. There is tens of millions of dollars in payables to some major unsecured creditors, which they settled for dimes on the dollar. And so, and then as well, good support from the major shareholders and the board of directors for Ascot for us to come in with this rescue plan.
Excellent. Well, before we get too far along, why don't you give us kind of an elevator pitch on what Ascot, what you hope Ascot will become over the next few years? What does it have? What's it sort of? What are you positioning, setting it up to sort of be? And then after that, maybe if you wouldn't mind, we could just get into a little bit about what went wrong and why there was an opportunity for Fiore to sort of do what it does best and step in and help with a distressed opportunity.
Sure. So the assets in place. There's been since 2021, $530 million spent on the Premier project, and there's two projects here: Premier and Red Mountain, which are located. Red Mountain's located to the east of Premier, both of which are just north of Stewart, BC. The previous management built a brand new 2,500 ton per day absolute Cadillac CIL mill, the type of mill that can produce doré on site. Built a tailings facility, water treatment plant, over 6 kilometers of underground development on two deposits, over $400 million in tax pools, and two substantial deposits. The Premier deposit is fully permitted. It is almost 2 million ounces of indicated and inferred resources. Red Mountain, which has 780,000 ounces of measured and indicated, primarily measured resources, that has its EA and EIS approval. Just needs a few operational permits to be in place. So two well-advanced projects in a very pro-mining and safe jurisdiction where we as individuals and as Fiore have an exceptional relationship with the Nisga'a Nation, whose lands we hope to be mining on in the near future. So substantial resources in place, road access, low cost grid power, and excellent exploration upside. And we're in the midst of a financing right now where we are financing at a valuation of less than $100 million Canadian post money. We also have excellent shareholders, including Franklin Templeton, one of the largest money managers for natural resource stocks in the United States, as our second largest shareholder, and our largest is a Peruvian private family business called Coriapu that operate the Poderosa mine, producing over 300,000 ounces per year and own 38% of the company. So an excellent shareholder base. And so what we're bringing in is some knowledge and experience.
Excellent. And so you got the knowledge and experience. This is an asset and a company that you've been following for quite some time, and your family's got decades of kind of past experience working on different parts of the Premier mine, and then obviously Red Mountain was something that was acquired off of you. You were running IDM mining and had done a lot of that good work. If I'm not mistaken, they haven't really done anything with Red Mountain since they acquired it in 2019.
Yeah, and developing Red Mountain is the key to a successful operation. You see, you asked what went wrong previously, and
Yeah.
we all have the gift of hindsight, but a few things that happened that were difficult to catch up to is the mill for an underground operations is quite large, 2,500 ton per day SAG mill, that stands for semi-autogenated grinding. You need to fill that near capacity. You can't half fill or quarter fill that type of mill and still get gold out of the ground. So you had a big mill that required a lot of feed. The development was started too late to fully feed that mill. There's a lot of underground development that was done, but there wasn't sufficient working faces from the premier area deposits to be able to feed that mill sustainably. And a third aspect was that within Fiore, we've seen this a lot with other projects, such as Madsen Mine for West Red Lake. There wasn't nearly enough definition drilling to properly determine where the gold is. The gold is certainly there, but you need to drill it on 12.5 meter centers, not on the 25-meter centers that they previously tried to develop on. And so, not sufficient infill drilling. There's not enough ore to go in through the mill. The only way you can sustainably feed it is from a big, wide deposit like Red Mountain. Red Mountain's average thickness, the entire deposit, is 15 meters wide. That's very wide. The first 2 years, the average thickness is 25 meters wide at an average grade of 10.5 grams per ton. There are no operating mines in Canada underground, to my knowledge, that have that type of grade at that type of thickness. So you can bulk mine it all, and that can provide the basis for the mill feed. So as part of our plan, it's to, when we are operating, we would like 1,500 tons per day to come from Red Mountain at high grade and blend it in with 500 tons per day from Premier. So you'd have a nice mine at 2,000 tons per day at anywhere from 6 to 8 grams per ton, fully diluted average head grade. And so you would have a very nice producer that's also scalable. Like to kind of state some of the obvious, and I'm a bit biased in the case of one, Dolly Varden Silver, is that there's a lot of other deposits in the area that you could blend in ore from. Scotty Resources is off to the north. Contango, which actually just did the deal with Dolly, they have some direct shipping ore options as well too. So what we really like about this scenario is that is scalable. Between Premier and Red Mountain, you have a nice mine, but you have a lot of options in the region to look at larger scenarios in the next 5 years.
Yeah, like you said, 2,500 tons per day is a pretty sizable mill these days. If you were going to go and build that from scratch today, what do you have an estimate of what it would cost? And how long would something like that take to permit if you're doing it fresh?
So if you started today, it's 4 or 5 years because you need a couple years of baseline and a couple years that's on the permitting side. All I know is in terms of what a comparable cost would be. Ascot spent $530 or $540 million since 2021 to build the mill, plus all the other infrastructure. So a significant amount of sunk capitals that's there. So the only things that are required, and there are kind of 3 critical path items that we're looking at moving ahead. First and foremost is to build an access road up to Red Mountain. Not going to sugarcoat this bit. It's going to be a challenging road to build. It's very similar to the road that goes up to the Bruce Jack mine, except you don't have to drive on a glacier at Red Mountain like you do at Bruce Jack. But getting that road built to access the ore at Red Mountain, and then that'll be trucked through Stewart, BC, and Hydro, Alaska, up to Premier. So that's the first thing that needs to be done. The second is actually there are some additional components that are required to maximize recoveries. We want to add in a fine grinding circuit at Premier. Previous management, they leased a crusher instead of having a crusher up on site. Needs a few other mill components as well too. So we want to get those ordered as use of proceeds from this financing. And then the third from Premier is that we need to do some more infill drilling. Red Mountain does not need any more infill drilling. It's scissor drilled, it's bulk sampled. As mentioned, 540,000 ounces at 8.8 grams per ton measured resources. So you don't need to. It gets up to 100 meters wide in places. So you really don't need a lot of drilling there for many, many years to come, unless it's just on resource expansion or exploration drilling.
And so they were sitting on that asset, this Red Mountain, hadn't done any work on it, and messing around trying to get this premier sort of. Again, they didn't always have it in production. It was in a historic asset that required, again, them to build or upgrade the mill and sort of go through all the process of like getting it restarted. And when they restarted it, I guess, for lack of a better term, they just they weren't getting the grade that they'd hoped for. Is that correct? Because they hadn't done enough
Yeah,
drilling of the mining phase to really understand
yeah,
what
and
sort of grade.
so the current resource, like in terms of contained ounces, we stand by it. Like
Yeah,
the amount of ounces that are there are
sure,
is certainly that's drill indicated. It's
sure,
not measured. So you need to go in and part of our knowledge and my knowledge is hey, if you have often you can have if you have 10 geologists, you're going to have 10 different opinions on things. Premier was the richest mine in the world for 13 or 14 years from 1918 until early 1930s. Spectacular grade, impeccable geology that was done. And so having a good and appreciate the understanding for the geological nuances at Premier, we have that. The previous resource estimation was just a grade shell, which means if you have a high grade intercept here and a high grade intercept over here, connect the dots, and that's what you think it is. No, you need to have an understanding of post mineral deformation, different vein phases, and that sort of thing. At one of the other deposits called Big Missouri, this is another deposit that has history. It was bulk mined underground in the 1940s by a company called Cominco. Exceptional miners, exceptional geologists. It was between 2 and 3 grams per ton that in fact, they tried to mine it they mined it like an underground open pit. It was very innovative mining methods at the time in a big, wide, flat line breccia.
mm,
Ascot thought that they connected the high grade dots again. They made a grade shell. And their assumption was that the grade was higher. Instead, you have to look at the whole vein, the whole structure, like the old timers did. I tell you, at $4,000 gold, between 2 and 3 grams per ton, bulk mineable with existing underground development is very interesting. And so that's another one that we're deposit that's in the portfolio that we're going to be looking at. My cousin mined the silver coin deposit back in the 1990s for a junior called Tenajon. We got a lot of intellectual knowledge on that as well too. So it needs a bit more drilling, but again, we're only looking for 25% of the tons to come from the premier area deposits. The vast majority is going to come from Red Mountain. That's where the profit's going to come from.
excellent. And so you mentioned your partner there at Fiore, and you mentioned a couple of kind of turnaround stories, recapitalization kind of stories. Really, these were stories that came out of bankruptcy. A couple of different structures, but you've got West Red Lake, which was probably one of the fastest sort of put back into production with a completely new plan that I've ever seen. It seemed quick to me, maybe not to all shareholders, but it seemed quick to me. And then you guys have recently sort of taken on Selkirk, and that's a very interesting structure with it being sort of an asset that the Selkirk First Nation were able to sort of bring to the table, and you guys are partnered with them on that. Again, it's another pubco. I'm a shareholder of both of those, and also a shareholder here of Ascot, and look forward to hopefully growing that position here with you. But if you wouldn't mind just mentioning a little bit about who Fiore is, he's got kind of a pretty well-known billionaire that kind of whose name gets thrown around a lot. Let's throw it around one more time, shall we? And then maybe who your other sort of partners are that are sort of part of this business, and what does it do?
Sure. So Fiore, our spiritual leader, who you're referring to, is Frank Giustra. Frank founded the Fiore Group with his partner Gord Keep, 30 years ago. put together many of the most successful mining deals from, Wheaton to Endeavor to recently Eris mining. But he has surrounded himself with, this technical and marketing batch of people. We have about 80 of us that are working in the office, and often different. If it's a new deal, is it can be led by different members within the group. And so Sean Kuhn and Ryan Waymark are my two partners. And on this deal on Ascot, our primary partner is Ryan. Ryan is a late 30s mining engineer, and I don't know if you met him, Keir, but
Yeah. Yeah, I've
he
met Ryan. Yeah, I spoke to him before. Smart guy. Maybe, anyways, you can tell me a bit more.
so
Tell my viewers a bit more.
he and a couple other partners, including his brother, so they formed a group called Fuse Advisory. Fuse Advisors, which was recently acquired by SLR within the office. So just down the hall, we call them the Nerd Herd. There's 40 mining engineers and processing specialists and permitting specialists that, whether it's for Ascot, for West Red Lake, or Selkirk or Dolly Varden, is that we have all of this technical depth within the group to help support. So Ryan's the primary partner with me on Ascot. Sean Kuhn, who's the CEO of Dolly Varden, which recently announced a transaction with Contango. He's going to be an advisor moving ahead, and one of my best friends, and helps raise money. But then we have a tremendous amount of other depth within the group, within the other companies. We we're the founders of Canada's two largest majority Indigenous owned public companies. And so we take capacity building for Indigenous people. We don't want government help. Government can get out of our way. We're helping to build up Indigenous people because it's the right thing to do, so they can have some skin in the game. So we have a lot of Indigenous depth within the team. And we support each other in different marketing endeavors as well too. Marketing is really important. You can have the best story in the world, and if nobody hears about it, it's not necessarily going to help you. And so we have a lot of marketing professionals. Sean often leads that group of people to help get your story out, and we share those type of information. So I think we've got the best mining shop in the country within Fiore. I'm really proud of what we built here. We all have our main day jobs. We all sit on different boards for different companies, but there's a lot of support within the group to make this successful, and a lot of learnings. We've learned so much from West Red Lake. We're learning a lot from Selkirk Copper and the Minto project, and can apply it to the new things that we're moving forward. And we put together phenomenal teams. We'll have some news coming out soon on the new additions to the team at Ascot. And finally, there's no better way of burying the bodies than having a good name change. And so we'll be doing a name change and rebrand of Ascot in the near future. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I look forward to that. So maybe for those of my viewers that don't kind of understand the technical aspect, this company sort of got delisted or lost its main sort of like TSX listing, and it's fell into what we call the next board, and has got a .H. AOT.H is the current thing. What's it take to sort of get a company off of that and back onto, like, say, the venture exchange?
Oh, so that will be coming in the near future. Is that there were certain things that they missed that was flagged by the exchange. Exchange told the company what needed to be done to be able to correct that. I believe all of those have been met. We're currently looking to close the second and final tranche after closing a little over $80 million on the first tranche on December 30th. So once the financing is complete, is that we should be given the clearance to be trading back on the venture exchange. And so this has been a very, very complicated deal given the nature of the restructurings that needed to be done.
Sure.
Additionally, prior to this financing, there was a rights offering that
Yeah.
was well oversubscribed. The use of proceeds from that rights offering went to settle to clear the balance sheet and settle with the unsecured creditors. So it's been many different stage gates for the company to get to this stage. But going ahead, we're going to have a very well valued asset that has a lot of runway ahead of it for us to execute on our plans here. It's going to be really nice to have and good news shareholders that look like they'll be coming in for this ride, and this is going to mean a lot to my hometown of Stewart. So I'm very, very motivated to see this work.
Awesome. So let's just cover a bit of that. So I'm sure this time round, you probably didn't want this asset to fall into bankruptcy protection because there might have been a few other bidders. So you probably waited to the last possible moment before getting involved. So good on you guys, because it seems like a very strategic asset to have in an area, the Golden Triangle, which is so well endowed with high grade metal and so important. So it might be very, very strategic here with what you have. But let's just go back to the financing stuff. As somebody who does quite a bit of investing, it was kind of a lot to sort of follow along, and I have no idea how many shares you might have out. Maybe you could just go over the cap table, and you guys went through a consolidation at 50-1. You had a 1 cent sort of rights offering pre-consolidation, so I guess a 50 cent post-consolidation sort of rights offering for existing shareholders as a opportunity to average way down on it. And then you guys have sort of restructured some things with some of your lenders, amended as you sort of mentioned. But where are we at in terms, like, assuming this like, what's the current cap table kind of look like? How many shares outstanding is there?
So prior to the restructuring, there was close to 1.5 billion shares outstanding. And so
Sure.
with the rights offering, that jumped up to almost 3 billion. So lots of Aussie listing jokes about that one.
Yeah.
We did the 50-for-1 consolidation. And with the current 60 cent unit financing, assuming it gets fully subscribed for the $150 million raise, there would be 330 plus million shares outstanding. Where our market cap at 60 cents would be in and around 200 million.
Yeah.
And our post-money enterprise value would be 95 million. There's a little bit of debt on the books with a group called Nabari. They've been very supportive of our vision. It's $27 million US. They did provide a bridge facility that we only used a small portion of it, which will be repaid as part of the use of proceeds. So it's going to be a really nice structure that is going to give us a lot of time for us to execute on our plans.
Provided so how much is this current financing, this I guess 60 cent unit offering, how much in total are you looking to raise? I know you closed on a first tranche. How much in total are you raising?
So we've closed on 80. We are targeting 150 million. We had to close the first tranche right in the middle of the holidays, and we had certain deadlines that we needed to meet with the secured creditors, and so that's why we had to do that early close.
And in terms of the cap table, out of the 330 sort of million shares that you'll kind of have out at the concluding this financing, who are some of the major shareholders that you might be able to talk about? You talked about a couple at the very beginning. Maybe if you could reiterate what you were able to disclose.
Sure, sure. So, Corey Apu, the family owned Peruvian private company that operate the Poderosa mine, they will own 38%. Franklin Templeton, they're currently just above 10% right now, but they should get diluted down a little bit as part of the second tranche and will be below 9.9. Within the Fiore group, we will have about the same sort of level, and then we'll be disclosing some new institutional shareholders that will be coming in for significant investments into this raise as well. So it's going to be a very, very nice shareholder base here.
And in terms of royalty or streaming type situation, what does that look like with the company?
So Sprott Royalty and Streaming, they have a currently a stream on the project. It's what is it, 8.6% of the gold at 10% of spot. There are two ways of lowering that, which we would look into. The first is a buyback where we can buy back 50%. And there's also a step down after I think is 150,000 ounces produced. And so, and then there's some other NSRs, 3.5% NSR at Red Mountain, and the existing royalty to Nations Royalty as well too. And so it's, but given the high margins and the high grade of this deposit, it can handle those royalty and stream burdens.
And so the stream, is that on the Premier or is that on the Red Mountain?
It's on both projects because it's considered one project, two deposits, but
Okay.
but one project. It does not apply to any third party ores that are processed through the mill.
Okay. So very interesting. So that could be. It sounded like you had about 500 tons per day of maybe spare capacity if you're going to take it just up to your nameplate sort of capacity.
Correct.
So who knows? Maybe there's a hub and spoke sort of model that might be able to be done for some other nearby neighbors in the region who might want access to some mill time.
Oh, sure, and
Yeah.
you know it's no secret we'd be silly not to consider like Scotty Resources led by Brad Rourke have done an amazing job. You know, that's talk about family businesses up there. My uncle built the original Scotty mine back in the early '80s, so really familiar with it. And you know, we could absolutely see a lot of synergies with Scotty. And then, you know, there's lots of other stranded deposits in the north. There are no other mills in northwestern BC that can handle large amounts of tons. And also located on tidewater, could potentially handle, you know, direct shipping orders from other deposits, either in British Columbia or abroad. And so, you know, what we really like about, you know, this story is it is scalable. You know, it's currently permitted for 2,500 tons per day, but I'm told you can crank up that mill and get it up to 3,000 tons per day in the future. So one step at a time. You know, we can dream big, but let's get Red Mountain developed, and that can be the primary feed, blended nicely in from the three different deposits at Premier, and you're going to have a very nice high margin mine, as well as lots of exploration upside here. And I'm still an explorer at heart and believe in the potential here.
Sure.
But
well, I know you're running a little short on time, so we'll sort of like speed ahead here. Again, this is a first look, so I hope that we'll sort of catch up again for more of like a slide deck sort of page flip once you get rebranded and have maybe more than this is maybe what officially sort of, I don't know, your second week of being on the job. Maybe second day of being on the job.
Yeah.
But anyways, why don't we just sort of wrap up? In terms of like, this is a redevelopment story. So when do you think you take it off of care and maintenance and be back, when are you guys sort of targeting to be back into sort of production?
So we've learned a lot of lessons, say, from West Red Lake, and our plan is to budget for a 3-year restart, but we're
Okay.
planning on the third quarter of 2027, so a 2-year restart. That's what
Sure.
we're planning for. So, but it's mining. Things can happen. Or you can have a fire in the mill or something like that. You could have a flood and takes the road out. This is stuff that happens. So we believe that we can have this up and going in the third quarter of 2027, but we're going to ensure that the company is sufficiently capitalized so that if things take longer and the care and maintenance costs, that you still need to spend, we can still continue to finance the company if needed moving forward from position
Sure.
of strength. And if you notice, back to the financing, and this was actually at the urging of one of our major investors midway through the financing, who had participated in many rounds, 11 different rounds of previous financing. He says, this company's always been undercapitalized. We added a half warrant with a short trigger, 1 year at 85 cents. That provides an additional financing option. A lot of
Right.
us view warrants as sweeteners. They should be viewed as a financing mechanism. And so the use of proceeds from those additional warrants will continue to keep the company be well valued. At the time of
Sure.
recording this with you, those warrants would be in the money. So
Yeah, you had a pretty phenomenal day today with having a pretty tight new cap table. So you're up like some 20%. The world is looking like a complicated place, and hard assets is certainly looking like a good place to be. Gold's obviously had a remarkable 2025, and silver had a remarkable 2025. Both. Let's see what happens here with 2026, but with what happened sort of over the weekend, geopolitically, certainly looking like there's people are now scrambling to try to secure their own resources for each. Countries are looking to secure their own resources. So good time to be sort of in the mine development business here with something that's pretty tangible with a lot of the hundreds of millions of dollars of sunk capital. You're a good benefactor of that. Anyways, so just a couple other wrap up, and then I'll let you hop to your next one. Any sort of legal risk, litigation risk, sort of on the table for anybody like here? We should ask these questions, right? Because it was
sure. So
phenomenal. It was a massive failure, not under your, but under previous leadership. So
there was a bunch of litigation, like and liens against the project. Like for example, Nuna, which is a construction company, they're Indigenous owned. I worked with them decades ago up in the Arctic. Is we settled with them. The alternative, unfortunately for them, was to get nothing if it went to bankruptcy. But I'm a relationship person. I really am grateful for primarily Nuna and Procon, which is a contract underground miner, where they settled for what was a lot more than they would have gotten if it went to bankruptcy. And so though that litigation has been dropped, there was a previous class action, which I actually don't know the status about it. It's a shareholder class action. Our shareholders have been supportive, especially two of the major ones. So, we will deal with that. And that's the major litigation risk against the company right now, to my knowledge.
how sensitive is this project to the price of gold and precious metals?
Well, on the upside or the downside. So it's on both. It's
Both.
the same
Both.
slope, right? And
Both.
so
Yeah.
this will be, I believe, one of the highest grade bulk mineable underground gold deposits in the country when it's operating, and very, very leveraged to increases in price of gold. We have our internal financial model, which you wouldn't believe it if I showed it to you. So It's the $4,400 US gold. This is a dream project. It really, really is. These type of deposits, this is foundational and it's scalable. And so the price now, it's also because it's high grade, you're protected to the downside if there's some sort of weird correction, which I don't think is going to happen. But if it did, you always want to have grade. You don't lose that margin. It's not, I'll take grade over tons any day when it comes to deposits.
And just, this is a curveball for you. I'm going to ask, what would be kind of the general sort of average grade that would be mined underground in most of today's sort of modern mines? Just to put into context, when you say this project has the potential to be one of the highest grade, or if not the highest grade underground projects in Canada. Canada typically is fairly high grade sort of jurisdiction. But what are we generally sort of like looking at? And again, I'm not gonna hold anybody to specifics. This is more of like your expertise, your general sort of knowledge, and nobody's gonna like come jump at you and say you were wrong. What do you think it is these days for an underground mine?
In Ontario, like in a real mining company within within the Abitibi belt, it's anywhere from, if it's bulk mineable, like in the case of West Timmins, it's 2 grams per ton, up to like Agnico Eagle's Laurent, which is bulk mineable and has a zinc credit. You can be up and around 4 grams per ton. You go into looking Red Lake, and it could be in around 5 or 6 grams per ton. High grade isn't the high grade of my father's
The old timers.
Yeah. And so it's, I think the global average grade for all gold deposits now is in and around a gram, which includes open pit mines. And so it's, the real high grade world class deposits. Most of them are played out. There's some, globally exceptional ones like Fruta del Norte. But to underground bulk mineable like the grades you get at Red Mountain, I don't know of any in the country.
Yeah, isn't it funny? You read those old reports, and the old timers, man, every single one of them was mining like 20, 30 gram per ton gold. What the heck? What kind of
like SK
can
Creek,
they leave some for us?
SK Creek underground, I think it was 28 grams per ton cut
Yeah.
off. That was
wow.
the lowest grade.
Cut off.
Yeah.
Throw it out.
Oh man, I know. It's a different world. So
yeah. Well, hey, Rob, I really appreciate you spending a bit of time with us. Last question: what are a couple catalysts that we should watch out for over the next sort of 3 to 6 months?
So there's, if you can believe, exploration drill results that the company put out, drilled last year, but until this transaction was completed, they were quarantined by the lab, and so we'll have drill results. Ideally, the commencement of the construction of the road to Red Mountain in a few months is what we are targeting. There'll be the commencement of underground drilling at the Premier project, as well as those results. We will look to later on in the year update the feasibility study to incorporate the new sequencing and reflect new metal prices and stuff. That will probably be the biggest catalyst by far that the company will have. And you always want to be on the lookout for some M&A too. So.
Hey, excellent. Well, I really appreciate you giving us a good rundown on First Look. Congrats again on the new role. I guess there's no other person on the planet that is better suited based upon your experience and family's experience with these assets. So really excited to sort of follow along and see what you have going, and wish you a great, highly successful 2026.
Well, thank you so much, Keir. I'm really happy to hear that you're going to be an investor, or you are a shareholder.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly stay in touch as we progress these assets.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Keir.